What happens when a black pilot faces a racist at Atlanta airport? His bold move ignites a showdown that leaves the terminal stunned. Atlanta, Georgia, June 24, 8:34 p.m. local time. The evening air clung to my skin like a warm memory as I, Thomas Jackson, a 59-year-old black pilot, stood on my porch, helping a neighbor's boy fix his toy airplane. His eyes lit up as I adjusted the wings, a reminder of why I soar, to give my kids a better horizon. Being black in Atlanta is like flying through turbulence without a heads up. You've got to be ready for any jolt to keep from crashing. I headed to Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, proud of my next flight, but life had a storm brewing. The airport hummed like a beehive, luggage carts rattled, the aroma of fresh coffee from the cafe mixed with disinfectant, and departure boards glowed like city lights. I strode in my pilot's uniform, gold stripes gleaming on my shoulders, my step steady despite the fatigue from a red eye. That uniform wasn't just cloth, it was 30 years of sky battles, every scar a badge of honor. But as I approached the check-in counter, a white employee, a 40-something man with a shiny face and a smug glare, blocked my path, his hand raised like a gate. His name, I'd learn later, was Michael Reed, and his tone was sharp as a razor. "Hold it right there. Where you headed?" "Got permission," he barked, his eyes scanning my uniform with doubt. The terminal quieted, passengers turning heads, their whispers cutting like knives. My chest tightened, but I smiled, masking the fire inside. I knew he was underestimating me. This wasn't my first rodeo with folks judging my skin over my stripes. "Permission?" I said, my voice calm with a hint of irony. "I'm the pilot of this flight, sir." His cold stare lingered, and I felt injustice thickening like fog on a runway. "This is just the takeoff. The storm's about to hit. Don't miss what's next." I stood at the counter, my pilot's uniform a shield, but inside, old wounds tore open. Michael Reed eyed me, his gaze narrowing like I was a trespasser, not a man who commands the skies. The airport buzzed, announcements echoed, carts clattered on tiles, the scent of fast food blending with cleaning agents. I wore my status with pride, but this moment dragged me back to '85 in Memphis, when a hotel clerk turned me away because I didn't look like a guest. History was repeating, and I was ready to face it. Reed crossed his arms, his voice a siren's wail. "Your ID. And don't try to pull a fast one," he sneered, his tone dripping with disdain, like I was a fraud. Passengers murmured, some pulling out phones, their cameras flashing like paparazzi. My daughter, who'd grown up seeing me in this uniform, called me her hero, but now I felt like a target. "Fast one?" I said, my sarcasm thin but cutting. "Sir, I fly higher than your prejudices can reach." The terminal gasped, and a white woman in glasses clutched her purse, her eyes wide with shock. Reed leaned in, his minty breath hitting my face, his cheeks flushing. "You're not cleared for security." "Wait here," he snapped, ignoring my pilot's badge. My hands trembled, not from fear but from a rage I'd held for decades. I flashed back to '90, when I was stopped at a parking lot looking suspicious, despite my uniform. This wasn't a delay, it was a strike at my identity. "Cleared," I muttered, my voice quivering with held-back fury. Wonder if white pilots get this VIP treatment too. Security rolled in, two white guards in crisp uniforms, their boots thumping like a judge's gavel. "Sir, come with us," one growled, his tone rough as sandpaper. The crowd stilled, their stares a mix of curiosity and judgment. My stomach nodded, but I straightened, locking eyes with Reed. "With you?" "Only if you can navigate a cockpit," I said, my sarcasm icy as a Georgia frost. The terminal buzzed, and I knew he was underestimating me. This was just the opening round. The first blows are struck, and the fight's heating up. You won't want to miss what's coming. The airport turned into a coliseum, every sound a roar, every glance a challenge. I, Thomas Jackson, stood firm at the counter, my uniform wrinkled from the tension, my pulse hammering like a drumroll before the clash. Michael Reed loomed, his face a ripe tomato, his fists clenched like he wanted to swing with words. The guards flanked me, their uniforms gleaming under fluorescent lights, their eyes cold as steel. Passengers held their breath, cameras flashing, their whispers rising like a crowd at a showdown. The woman in glasses watched, her face softening with concern. Reed stepped closer, his voice a low threat. "You're detained pending security review." "You're not boarding," he declared, his words a hammer blow. "Detained?" My blood surged, memories crashing, turned away from a cockpit in '85 because I didn't look the part, my brother nabbed in the '90s for suspicious luggage. This wasn't a mistake, it was racism cloaked as protocol. "Detained?" I said, my sarcasm slicing like a blade. "Tell me, do white pilots get this special welcome, or is it just my privilege?" The guard on my left grabbed my arm, his grip like a vice. "Sir, come with us, or we'll use force," he snarled, his voice thick with menace. My feet rooted to the floor, my mind screaming, but I didn't budge. I recalled 2000, when I was detained at a Dallas Gate 4, wrong profiling, despite my badge. This was a system designed to break us. "Force?" I said, my voice solid as concrete. "Go ahead, but I'm not the one you can shove aside." The terminal gasped, applause cutting through the air. The woman in glasses stood, her voice shaky but fierce. "Leave him alone. He's our pilot." Her words were a spark, and a black man in a suit in the back nodded, his eyes offering support. But a white passenger in a cap yelled, "He's a fake. Check him again." "Fake?" I turned to him, my sarcasm cold as an Atlanta winter. "Fake? Sir, I've flown circles around your doubts." The crowd hummed, and I knew he was underestimating me. This was the peak of my patience. This is the breaking point. The heat's on, don't miss what's next. The airport was a battlefield, every murmur a soldier's march, every stare a rifle shot. I, Thomas Jackson, stood tall, my wrinkled uniform a banner, my heart thumping like a war drum. Reed staggered back, his face flushed, his hands trembling like a man losing his grip. The guards hovered, their handcuffs gleaming, their faces tense with uncertainty. Passengers held their breath, cameras flashing, their whispers swelling like a stadium roar. The woman in glasses stood firm, a black woman in her 40s joined her, and the man in the suit stepped up, their support a fortress. Reed pointed at me, his voice raspy. "He's a threat. Take him away." "Threat?" My chest tightened, memories crashing, denied first class in '95 because I didn't fit, my dad stopped for suspicious behavior, in the '60s. This wasn't a check, it was an assault on my pride. "Threat?" I said, my sarcasm a sharpened edge. "Your threat is hiding behind a badge to mask your hate." The terminal gasped, applause ripping through the tension. The woman in glasses shouted, "He's no threat, he's our pilot." The black woman in her 40s added, her voice ablaze, "We won't let you shame him." The man in the suit moved forward, his voice deep. "I saw his badge, he's legit." Support surged like a wave, but the cap-wearing passenger leapt up, his voice venomous. "He's a fraud. Check him again." "Fraud?" My hands shook, not from fear but from fury I'd held for decades. The guard on the right tightened his grip, his voice gruff. "Sir, last chance. Come with us." My feet stayed planted, my mind roaring, but I didn't move. I flashed back to 2010, surrounded at a gate 4, wrong profiling, despite my stripes. This was a system built to humiliate. "Last chance?" I said, my voice a steel wall. "You lost yours when you judged my skin over my wings." The crowd erupted, cheers clashing with jeers. A middle-aged black man nearby stood, his voice resonant. "We're tired of this nonsense." His words thundered, and I saw Reed flinch, his confidence cracking. I knew he was underestimating me, and this rising support was my ammunition. The support's rising, and the tension's thick. You won't believe what's coming, stay with me. The airport was a pressure cooker, every voice a steam vent, every glance a spark. I, Thomas Jackson, stood my ground, my wrinkled uniform a warrior's cloak, my heart pounding like a jet engine. Reed hovered, his face a beet-red mess, his hands quivering like a man losing his fight. The guards clutched their handcuffs, their faces strained, their boots heavy as judgment. Passengers held their breath, cameras flashing, their murmurs rising like a stadium wave. The woman in glasses, the black woman, the man in the suit, they were my bulwark, but the heat was climbing fast. Reed advanced, his voice a growl. You're under arrest for noncompliance. Move with security. Arrest? My blood surged, memories crashing, barred from a cockpit in 2005 for not looking right, my brother detained in the 90s for suspicious luggage. This wasn't a delay, it was systemic racism in action. Arrest? I said, my sarcasm a razor's edge. Tell me, do white pilots get arrested for breathing, or is that my exclusive club? The terminal gasped, applause cutting through the air. The guard on the right seized my arm, his grip like iron. Sir, resist, and it gets worse, he barked, his tone thick with threat. My feet rooted, my mind screaming, but I didn't budge. I recalled 2015, surrounded at a Dallas gate for wrong profiling, despite my badge. This was a machine to break us. Worse? I said, my voice solid as steel. You've already made it worse judging my color over my cockpit. The crowd cheered, claps echoing. The woman in glasses yelled, stop this. He's our pilot. The black woman in her 40s joined, her voice fierce. We won't let you degrade him. The man in the suit stepped up, his voice deep. I demand answers. Support swelled like a tide, but the cap-wearing passenger jumped up, his voice hateful. He's a liar. Arrest him now. Liar. I turned to him, my sarcasm icy. Liar. Sir, I've flown rings around your ignorance. The terminal buzzed, and I knew he was underestimating me, but the pressure was a forge. The pressure's building, and it's about to blow. Don't miss what's next, stay locked in. The airport was a war zone, every shout a cannon, every stare a bullet. I, Thomas Jackson, stood tall, my wrinkled uniform a flag, my heart thumping like a battle march. Reed shrank back, his face pale as ash, his hands trembling like a man out of moves. The guards hovered, their handcuffs useless, their faces taut with doubt. Passengers held their breath, cameras flashing, their murmurs rising like a stadium roar. The woman in glasses, the black woman, the man in the suit, they were my shield, but the crowd was fracturing. Reed jabbed a finger at me, his voice a rasp. He's a danger. Get him out. Danger. My chest tightened, memories crashing, denied boarding in 95 for not fitting, my dad stopped for suspicious behavior, in the 60s. This wasn't a check, it was a blow to my soul. Danger. I said, my sarcasm a honed blade. You're dangers when you judge my skin instead of my wings. The terminal gasped, applause tearing through the tension. The woman in glasses shouted, he's no danger, he's our captain. The black woman in her 40s added, her voice ablaze, we're with him. The man in the suit moved forward, his voice resonant. I vouch for him, he's real. Support surged like a wave, but the cap-wearing passenger leapt up, his voice venomous. He's a fake. Check him again. Fake. My hands shook, not from fear but from fury I'd held for decades. The guard on the left reached for his radio, his voice gruff. Requesting backup. Backup? My feet stayed planted, my mind roaring, but I didn't move. I flashed back to 2018, circled at a gate 4, wrong profiling, despite my stripes. This was a system to humiliate. Backup? I said, my voice a steel barrier. Bring an army, but I won't move till the truth's out. The crowd erupted, cheers clashing with jeers. A white man in a business suit stood, his voice hesitant but clear. Maybe he's right, this looks biased. His words were a crack in the wall, and I felt the crowd tilting my way. I knew he was underestimating me, and this split was my leverage. The crowd splitting, and the stakes are sky high. You won't believe what's next, stay tuned. The airport was a volcano, every voice a lava flow, every glance a spark. I, Thomas Jackson, stood my ground, my wrinkled uniform a warrior's mantle, my heart pounding like a jet on takeoff. Reed cowered, his face a ghost, his hands shaking like a man undone. The guards gripped their radios, their faces strained, their boots heavy as doom. Passengers held their breath, cameras flashing, their murmurs rising like a stadium chant. The woman in glasses, the black woman, the man in the suit, they were my bulwark, but the boiling point was here. Reed lunged forward, his voice a whimper. You're under arrest for defiance. Go with security. Arrest? My blood surged, memories crashing, barred from a cabin in 2004, not looking right, my brother detained in the 80s for suspicious luggage. This wasn't a holdup, it was a strike at my essence. Defiance? I said, my sarcasm a razor's edge. Your defiance is seeing my color, not my cockpit skills. The terminal gasped, applause slicing through the air. The woman in glasses yelled, he's not defying, he's standing up. The black woman in her 40s joined, her voice fierce. We won't let you break him. The man in the suit stepped up, his voice deep. I demand justice. Support swelled like a tsunami, but the cap-wearing passenger jumped up, his voice hateful. He's a fraud. Lock him up. Fraud? My hands trembled, not from fear but from rage I'd bottled for years. The guard on the right pulled out handcuffs, his voice gruff. Resistance makes it worse. Handcuffs. My legs locked, memories flashing, police at my door in 2012, my cousin's unjust arrest. But I didn't flinch. Worse? I said, my voice a steel wall. You've already made it worse judging my skin over my flight hours. The crowd erupted, cheers clashing with jeers. The business-suited man moved closer, his voice firm. I saw how you treated him. This is wrong. His words were a breach in the dam, and I felt the crowd shifting my way. I knew he was underestimating me, and this was my boiling point. The boiling point's reached, and it's explosive. You won't believe what's coming, stay with me. The airport was a war ground, every shout a cannon, every stare a rifle shot. I, Thomas Jackson, stood tall, my wrinkled uniform a flag of defiance, my heart thumping like a victory drum. Reed shrank back, his face a pale wreck, his hands quivering like a man out of ammo. The guards hesitated, their handcuffs dangling, their faces uncertain. Passengers held their breath, cameras flashing, their murmurs rising like a stadium roar. The woman in glasses, the black woman, the man in the suit, they were my shield, but backup was rolling in. The terminal doors flew open, and heads turned. A tall black man in a sharp suit strode in, his steps a drumbeat of authority, his presence a tidal wave. I knew him, Captain David Reynolds, my wingman through storms, a brother who'd seen me rise. His eyes met mine, and I grinned, not soft but fierce, the kind that says, hold on, the tide's turning. What's this mess? Reed barked, his voice frail but frantic. The guard on the left stepped back, his hand pausing over his radio. Captain Reynolds advanced, his voice deep as the ocean. I'm here to defend my pilot and shut down this disgrace. The terminal gasped, whispers erupting like fireworks. The woman in glasses cheered, yes, sir. The black woman in her 40s clapped, her voice booming, that's the support we need. Reed jabbed a finger at me, his voice shaking. He's a hazard. Remove him. Hazard? I turned to him, my sarcasm a blade. Hazard? Sir, your hazard's the fear behind your badge. The crowd hummed, applause cutting through. The man in the suit nodded, his voice steady. I confirm he's a pilot. The cap-wearing passenger yelled, this is a setup. Setup? I smiled, my sarcasm icy. Young man, this is truth you can't handle. The terminal buzzed, and I knew he was underestimating me, but the backup had shifted the field. The backup's here, and the game's changing. Don't miss the next play, stay tuned. The airport was a crucible, every shout a flame, every glance a spark. I, Thomas Jackson, stood beside Captain Reynolds, his suit a fortress, his presence a storm. My heart pounded like a jet engine, my uniform crumpled, my spirit unyielding. Reed cowered, his face a ghost, his hands trembling. The guards retreated, their handcuffs useless, their faces flushed with doubt. Passengers held their breath, cameras flashing, their murmurs rising like a victory chant. The woman in glasses, the black woman, the man in the suit, they were my wings, but the truth was soaring. Captain Reynolds stepped forward, his voice a thunderclap. I have recordings of your exchanges, Mr. Reed, proving your racist conduct. The terminal exploded, cheers shaking the walls. The woman in glasses cried, at last. The black woman in her 40s clapped, her voice resonant, justice is coming. The man in the suit nodded, his voice firm. I heard it too. Support surged like a jet stream, but the tension was a pressure cooker. Reed staggered, his voice a croak. Lies. You've got no jurisdiction. Captain Reynolds stood firm, his eyes cold as steel. Jurisdiction? I've got the right to protect my crew and demand an inquiry. The crowd gasped, applause clashing with jeers. The business-suited man rose, his voice clear. I back this. It's unjust. The cap-wearing passenger wailed, this is rigged. Rigged? I turned to him, my sarcasm a whip. Rigged? Sir, your bias is the only fraud here. I stepped up, my voice a steel beam. You thought you could ground me for my color? You miscalculated. The terminal roared, cheers drowning the dissent. The woman in glasses clapped, tears in her eyes. I knew he was underestimating me, but the truth was lifting off, unstoppable as a 747. The truth's taking flight, and it's thunderous. The finale's near, don't go anywhere. The airport was a victory runway, the air thick with triumph, every voice a hymn, every glance a salute. I, Thomas Jackson, stood beside Captain Reynolds, my uniform rumpled but my soul soaring like an eagle over Atlanta. Reed slumped in a chair, his face a pale ruin, his hands shaking like a leaf. The guards backed off, their handcuffs dangling, their faces etched with shame. Passengers held their breath, cameras flashing, their applause a stadium roar. The woman in glasses, the black woman, the man in the suit, they were my crew, and the business-suited man nodded, his respect palpable. Captain Reynolds raised a hand, his voice a hammer. Mr. Reed, you're suspended, and the airport's launching an investigation. This pilot is cleared. The terminal erupted, cheers rattling the rafters. The woman in glasses shouted, justice. The black woman in her 40s clapped, her voice booming, thank you, sir. The man in the suit applauded, his voice steady. He's our champion. I stepped forward, my voice a clarion call. I'm Thomas Jackson, chief pilot at Delta and a major shareholder in this airport. The crowd gasped, a shockwave rippling through the terminal. Reed choked, his eyes bulging. That's impossible, he rasped, but I cut him off, my sarcasm a whip. Impossible? You didn't know who owned your skies till it was too late, Mr. Reed. The guards retreated, their heads bowed, and the airport manager, a white man in a sharp suit, stepped up, his voice trembling. We apologize and will investigate fully. My colleague Michael, a black pilot, approached, his eyes wet. You did it, Tom, he said, his voice breaking with pride. I nodded, my heart swelling but heavy, for every fight I'd flown, every soul I'd carried. The woman in glasses touched my shoulder, her voice warm. You inspired us. The man in the suit shook my hand, his voice deep. You turned the tide, friend. I turned to the crowd, my voice booming. This isn't just my win. It's for every black person told they can't soar. We won't be grounded. The terminal exploded, cheers and tears, a symphony of victory. I walked out, head high, knowing I'd left a legacy Atlanta would remember. What's it like being black in your state? Share your story in the comments. Where are you from? The reckoning's here, and it's epic. Drop your thoughts below.